So, hello everyone. I have a very special guest with me today at Unfold Data Science. So, I have Prakhar with me, and just a few, introduction I want to give you about Prakhar. Prakhar is a research scholar in data science, and Prakhar is also student ambassador for a large, section of students. Okay, many things Prakhar has done in his career of data science, and he is a very knowledgeable in that area. So I'll not talk more. I'll let Prakhar explain about, talk about how his career has been in data science and what all he has been through in all these, what all he has learned, all these things. So Prakhar, can you just let audience know like about you?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me over here. So, let me start with the starting phase of my life when I got into touch in the data science and ML domain. So, it was actually in the third year of my bachelor's, which is around the year of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So that is when one of my friends actually he was already into this stuff since 2012 when he kind of was doing some project regarding gesture recognition, I believe. I'd like to just give him a shout out. His name is Kumar Shubham, and so
Okay.
that was the first time I got into all of this, and I really found this cool. Like it's really something new that's happening in this space. So then, as a project of my bachelor's, I actually selected one of the machine learning problems, which was about song year prediction. Can you predict the year of the song based on certain features? Like if I give you
Mm-hmm.
the audio, can you predict in which year was it released? So that was a problem that I worked on, and that was, I believe, one of the first interests that came into all of this space, and I got interested in doing all of this stuff. Then I jumped into the industry after my college years, and I was working with the startups in Bangalore, and I really
Mm-hmm.
find myself lucky. Like when I joined as a software engineer as a fresher, but yeah, the role I was delivered was to do NLP things, NLP as in the machine learning and AI space. So that I think was one of the changing points in my life, like because they used to give me all sort of POCs problem, and being a fresher in that domain, my learning path was really accelerated at that point. So that was that I would like to say that was one of the things that kind of helped me grow my career further. And then I again switched one of the companies. I was there for 3 years. Again, it's a chatbot based firm. And then eventually I thought of like doing a step back and get into the academia again so that I
Mm-hmm.
can brush up my foundations more and have in-depth knowledge of how algorithms work beneath and just not do model or predict or fit functions. So yeah, that I would say is a hell a lot of a journey that I've been through. It's not really long, but yeah, it's somewhat around 4 years. And now I'm into all of this research thing where I do research on text summarization and video generation. It's more of a multi-model thing. So yeah, I would say yeah, this has been my journey as far here.
Great, great. That's great to hear. And as to my audience, right? So many people are here who are kind of either in college or kind of freshers. They are either about to pass
Hmm.
out from the engineering and MBA. So there are some students also. I mean, plus two students also. So for
Okay.
all of them, what would you say in the starting of their data science learning or career? What are the things they should focus on?
Yeah, so there are a couple of suggestions I can think of to deliver to the young aspirants or enthusiasts, more to say. So I would say explore enough before you settle down for something. Don't have the bit of a herd mentality, like because the word buzzword, let's say data science or ML is really hot right now, so you would want to do that. Just experience and see if it's made for you, if you really like that stuff, because it's a long going journey and people are really accelerating really fast. So that is one thing. And then I would say have your foundations strong, instead of just focusing on learning libraries. Clearly, these are essentials, but yeah, instead of just learning libraries and using their toolkits of dot fit, dot predict functions, I would encourage them to look into more of the fundamentals and mathematics that goes behind the algorithm, because eventually that is something that will help them go in a long run. Because eventually, when you come up to the industry, right? The all the basic algorithms don't function as they are supposed to, because there are many assumptions that go behind how things are supposed to work. So if you have a fundamental of how algorithm works, I believe that would kind of help you be a long run game. That would be really helpful. And also have a peer group, talk to people who have the same mindset. Because I don't know who said, but yeah, actually someone said like you are actually the average of five people whom you surround yourself with.
Correct.
So the
Yes.
more you surround yourself with like-minded people of, let's say, data science from industry or researchers, the more you're going to think in that direction, and the better productivity or all of that, your robustness will increase. And so to say, just follow blogs, independent researchers, educators, all of their stuff, because everybody has a unique style of explaining things. So that way you'll be kind of in touch with what is happening in the industry, what is happening in the research, and you'll be there in hand, and you'll not miss out on what's happening or what's about to release, I would say.
Correct, correct. So what I have also seen that many people are just talking about, as you said, right? Model dot predict, model dot fit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nobody even likes to go to what is eigenvalue or eigenvectors in PCA. So when you
Hmm.
ask them, they'll not be, they'll not be wanting to that direction.
I'll tell you one example. So I was talking to one of the friends who just started with NLP and all of this stuff. So I was saying like, what are you using and all of for, let's say, sentiment analysis. He said I'm using BERT and I'm doing a linear layer on top of. Then I'm doing the fine tuning. I said, okay, cool, but why did you try doing lemmatization or stemming? And he was like, what is that? So I was like, yeah, so all these are pretty classical things, no? Because see, you, me, we have been through when BERT wasn't there. So when I started in 2015, 2016, it was just word to vec, and it was pretty new. That two people were not using it, at least in India, that much. People accelerated from 2017 onwards on all of these technologies. So I would say having the knowledge of classical NLP will is one of the things that is going to flourish in future, because right now you have all these deep end models that have a lot of parameters, but can you make them do whatever you want by the means of classical NLP as well? How does classical NLP come into the play? If you do lemmatization, then how does BERT react? Do you know that? So all of these questions, there are many things that you should know, at least to how things were, and now you have it. So how can you combine and do a hybrid version of both of them?
Very true. Yeah. So all these algorithms will give you a freedom of changing the parameters, changing the hyperparameters.
Exactly.
And just if you make, Adam to binary cross entropy or something like that, that is what
Yeah.
many people are thinking, that they are building a very high do model by doing these things, which is not true.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
I would say this is not their fault also, because the way the marketing is being done right now, these days, around data science, being it courses or something, you'll see like every other ad on YouTube. Probably if I'm just watching any of, let's say, your channel or any of the other channel, the ad kind of I'll see is around data science. So the targeted audience and the way advertisers are also placing these stuff is more kind of pushing these people, the new generation, to have a early easy on a learning curve, which is
yes,
okay, I think, for a couple of years, but not for a longer run.
yes. And also in the job, this thing JD job description I have seen, they'll very
Mm.
clearly mention these frameworks. For example, have you worked on BERT or not? Rather, they
Yeah,
should they should ask, they should be checking candidate on other things, I guess.
exactly. Nowadays, there is a paradigm shift that's happening in the interview space as well. Yeah, I see.
So, Prakhar, what are some of the resources or some of the, let's say, professors or content on YouTube or books that you refer, or you would advise someone to refer to that?
So I would say, first and the foremost thing is to classify yourself. If at what level are you? So let's say if you are into practitioner zone or if you are into researcher thing, because that will kind of define the kind of content you consume from the World Wide Web. But I really appreciate independent researchers like you, Yannick Kilcher, Henry I. Labs, Krish Nayak, all of these people, because you guys have your own way of explaining things, because everybody has their own way of explaining. So uh, you don't know, like, if I am seeing to you, I might enjoy your content more because the way you explain things. I might enjoy the content that Yannick Kilcher makes. So that way you'll have to test on things. And so I personally prefer independent researchers because they have their own niche in which they talk about.
Mhm.
So that is one thing. Then I'm really a avid reader of research papers. That is my go-to hobby, I would say. That is also one thing. If you are into research and you want to delve more into how things are working, go about and just have a look into, like, if this topic like query expansion, then you would want to go into and read paper about that. So that is again one of the best ways of learning, I think. But if you're not into that and you just want to skim on and have a breadth way of learning things, then have a subscription of Medium or even the free version. That would, you'll kind of consume the content, that variety. uh, the variety comes from there essentially. And yeah, I would say all of, and if you're into practitioners more or less, or if you are even into research and you want to now implement things, Kaggle kernels I think are the best places, because you'll have everything over there.
Yeah, and all these things. Also, one thing we should add here is anybody who is either planning to come to data science, or you are learning one habit, guys. I tell this to many people many times, but not all of us are in habit of reading from our childhood. Okay, so there used to be a
Yeah,
library period where we used to be forcefully sit in the library and read something.
yeah,
But some of us are not into reading habit. That's fine, but if you are coming to data science, at least try to get into that habit. That will help you a lot.
definitely, definitely. I'll 100%. I cannot agree more than that. Like whatever you said, because things are evolving so fast. You see, right? 20. I've seen the transition, so that's why I just keep referring it again and again. Post 2017, things have changed so fast, and people have been like, there's so much. At least for me in the field of NLP, there's so much happening. Like it's really hard to cope up with what's happening with the bigger giants. So there's no other way than you keep reading stuff what is happening and understanding. That's the way only you can cope up with all of these things, I would say.
Many people are researching, many people are publishing new things.
Exactly.
If you go before 2017, I can also correlate. A typical data science interview will be how decision tree works and how
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
diagram.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. True.
So that is how things are changing, and if we want to make some impact, then we have to be in the habit of learning the things in the right way. So whatever, like the way you mentioned, either you want to go in the depth of the things, or you want to know
Hmm.
more things, and you want to have
Exactly.
a wider concept of things.
Yeah, that is again, I believe, is a personal choice too. What is the style of learning you basically prefer? Yeah,
Correct. So that is how one should go about it. And
exactly.
also how you have been, Prakhar, meeting with many researchers, and yeah, your data science group, uh, your data science circle is large enough. You have worked in various
Yeah.
companies, so from their experience or from your seniors or colleagues, how do you see where the industry is heading going forward? What kind of people will be in demand? What kind of problem statements will be there? People are talking a lot of NLP nowadays, so how
Yeah.
do you see all
So,
this?
yeah. So I would say it's really some exciting and hot time to work in these recent things that are happening, because you see, right? Uh, there is a great, remarkable work that has been happening post 2018, at least in the field of NLP. So, but what I see, there is a difference in terms of the pace at which research is happening and at the pace in which industry is adapting to those things, because still people want to use BERT in their, let's say, search engine, what they make, let's say, for any company, but they're not able to use it at the fullest because of the, let's say, the model is really huge, they cannot apply it on device. So all of these things I see as the future prospects, because now you have BERT, but how do you make it work at scale? Let's say if you have 1000 requests per second or 10,000 requests per second, how do you make it scale? Or how do you, even if you don't have the internet, how do you make it work? Can you deploy it on device? So all of these things are, I think, one of the things that are really taking up ahead. And not only that, I feel as people know more about things, you have more things to conquer. For example, people were talking about classification regression past in 2015, 2016. Now then people talked about generating text and doing image classification, doing object detection, generating images now from GANs. And now people are talking about doing generating stylistic languages. Like if I give you a text, I say generate it in a style for Shakespeare. So now your model should understand, like, it should not generate something bland, but it should have those sophisticated words as well over there. So those things, I feel now, since we have crossed the stage of doing classification regression generation, now is this time of adding a bit of a nuance to it, of adding a style factor, or maybe tweaking the sentiment here and there, and see how the model performs. But not only that, now even if now these days reinforcement learning, generative adversarial networks, all of these generative modeling is also picking up, really, it's really hot these days. And explainability again, so with these models like the BERT and all, you have so many parameters. There are many papers that try to explain what the model is learning at each stage, but still explainability, I see, is one of the things that is going forward, and people would be in demand doing kind of distillation of the model. Like, can you have a shorter model of the bigger model and still have the same performance? So there is a lot of scope, I would say. Like, people say data science is becoming like software engineering nowadays, like it's more or less a monotonous thing. But yeah, I would say it's again a perspective. If you see it in a zone of classification and regression, it is there, because you have frameworks, you have so many wrappers, right? See, Keras was supposed to be the easiest by 2017 or something, that you
Yes.
could do it over TensorFlow. Now you have Taze, and there are many things that are there as on top of Keras as well, that let you just write 2 lines of code and you're done with your classification model. So that's what I would say. That is a not so correct direction to go on. But yeah, if you want to do a quick experiment, that is the way you would go about doing that. So there is a lot of scope, I would say. There's still not stagnation has reached. So yeah, I would say there is a scope. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
and
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
yes, and the kind of people who would be in demand, as you, there was one of the questions I thought of, right? So I would say now it's high time for, like, in the first thing that I mentioned, like, who what is my advice for the young researchers or the aspiring data scientists, right? So I would say it's again, like, you should be knowing fundamentals. You should be now knowing how things are going in depth, or in mathematics terms. So if you don't have that, I don't see it. I don't see a long sustainability post 5 years down the line, because then the complications are supposed to increase. You would have already solved the easier versions of those things in next 3 4 years. So yeah, that is what I would suggest.
Yes, and this applies to, just to add on to that, this applies to uh, anybody at any level of experience. So what happens
Exactly.
typically is, in data science, we do not have many, uh, you cannot be someone who doesn't know what is going on the ground and you can call yourself a data scientist. Okay.
Exactly.
If you want to call yourself a data scientist, you need to know what is going on the ground. Okay. For that to happen, you should know, when I'm calling a word to wake, what is happening in word to wake. So
Exactly.
I have seen some people from statistics background, and I asked how many principal components will be generated, and the person is saying as many as I want to choose.
Hmm.
And variance, I mean, some basic things, right? So if I give you 5 numbers, I add 10 to each of these numbers, what happens to the variance? These
Hmm.
things are the very basic. I mean, if you are sleeping also, you should be able to answer this.
True, true, true. If you are into this domain correctly. And also, one more thing I would just to point out, like, uh, this I've seen, as per my experience in the industry. Like, people think doing training a model and pickling it down is the only job that you have as a machine learning engineer. But clearly that's not the case, because right now, if you're doing a Kaggle challenge, you clearly have a very polished data to work on. You have the test split already there, you have the validation, you have the training set. But if you jump into the industry, you're not going to have any data at all. You'll have to design a pipeline to what kind of data do you want, what kind of annotations have to be there. You'll have to train the annotators in terms of how, what kind of annotation, what kind of labels you're supposed to tackle based on the kind of situation, the problem statement you're solving on. So that being the first thing, then once you train the model, you should be again then focusing on how do you even deploy that. You cannot say, okay, my this is the folder that has the pickle file, just this is a Jupyter notebook, you run that and you basically pass the sentence and you have the, let's say, sentiment. You cannot be dependent on the DevOps to be doing all of that stuff. Those guys have different challenges altogether. They need to scale your model at Kubernetes and Dockerizing all those things. But at least, yeah, doing a API level. So I would say end to end learning for a machine learning project is a must nowadays. You cannot escape that. Everybody expects, because why would company pay you a lot for just doing model.fit and doing a predict? There, if you don't know the basics that go behind, and if you're not able to have the pipeline, have the broader understanding of what kind of data do you want and how do you want to deploy it, how do you make the robustness, so that all of that knowledge is, I guess, nowadays very necessary.
And as you gain more experience, very true you said, as you gain more experience, right? So people are, sometimes people ask me what is the expectation from a, let's say, 7 8 year or 10 year experienced guy in data science. So
Hmm,
exactly what you said right now, Prakhar, is the expectation. Okay, so you have to take the call, you have to tell to business what data you want, you have to take
exactly.
the call, and if it fails, you are responsible because
Yeah,
you know getting your data is your responsibility.
exactly. So I'll tell you an example. So there was a situation where we are supposed to do a named entity. Like I was supposed to train a named entity model for a chatbot company that I was working on. So the challenge was there. Like I cannot start using Spacey or Stanford NLP directly, because people were typing in English, and I don't. Those models don't know how to understand that. And even people type in a lowercase thing, and these models toss up if you type everything in lowercase. They don't even understand if I write Prakhar in short case, it's a lower case, or if I do a title case, they totally have a different prediction values, because that is a feature that these models had in, like, while they were trained. So um, so clearly that was not the way to go about. So now we just have the raw data in our S3 and all of that database. So we had to make a pipeline. I had to make a UI essentially to help annotators to highlight and say, okay, this is that entity. So that was again up to me. There's nobody else who would do it for me. If I expect UI guys to do that, that's clearly wrong on my side, because those guys have different challenges altogether. So I'll have, because it's my job, I'll have to create that simple UI and doing the highlight for the annotation. I'll have to lay out that instruction for the annotation. I'll have to sit down with them to kind of know, like, what, how do they do it. So we gave this task to like three annotators, and we found for many examples they were not even understanding what location and name are. Everybody was doing like different things. Then we had to sit down and think, is our instructions not proper? Why are they not understanding? Because as for me, because I want to train a model, I know like this should be this and this should be that. But
Hmm.
for a third person, it's not that clear. So we had to then calculate a metric of inter annotated agreement to kind of evaluate in terms of how people are doing. So yeah, there are many things that go about once you land up in the industry. It's not about just doing some Kaggle projects and you'll be done. But clearly that would help, I won't deny. But there are many more things that are supposed to be done.
Yeah, and the beauty of this industry is, according to me, none of the two projects will be same. I mean, exactly
Exactly.
same.
No,
So
even I would say, even if they are same, they cannot be treated same. Like
they
the way
cannot
you
be
would
treated
solve
same.
them. Yeah, exactly.
It also depends on which industry you are, taking data from, and many other things, which vertical. So if you talk of NLP itself, let's say you want to design a dictionary for some purpose. The
Hmm.
dictionary will entirely change if it's an airline industry, or if it's an, let's say, retail.
Clearly, sure, sure. I do have one more example, if you permit. So it was, I was working for one of the companies, and so at that time in early 2016, everybody wanted to adopt to data science. They didn't want to adopt to what they were trying to solve. They just wanted to see what they can do. If I give you this much data, what is your platform capable of? What kind of insights can you generate?
Correct.
So I was working with one of the POCs, and it was about call center data. So it was
Hmm.
like, if you and me are talking, and we have a ASR engine, and it throws me all the text to what you said and what I said. It first of all, it doesn't have a speaker identification to who is saying. So that again is a big challenge. Like, so they just gave me this big SQL database of all the rows and things, and I could just see text happening here and there. Now they
Okay.
wanted to kind of get insights. And
those
I was,
those time word cloud was a big thing.
yeah, exactly. So it was like I saw the data, and that too, one more thing was missing. Like if I we are speaking right now, it's, let's say, at fifth second. Now this is at 6 second, right? So there is a time temporal nature also associated with when I speak. So that was also common. There was
Hmm.
one just timestamp, and full session was there for that timestamp. So there's no notion for me knowing if there is a delay in when the person speaks. So that kind of analysis is also not possible. So I had to do something around that, and that was again a lot of rule based stuff, because what can I do more than that? If I can, I was kind of confused, because again that was first two projects I was into machine learning, and then I was given this task. Then there was a task around Japanese text analysis. They gave me the text in Japanese and asked me to build a search engine around that. So I would say there are many challenges that you're supposed to face. Right now there are multilingual, there are many things that are already there on your plate. Using them, understanding them is a challenge, but at that time all of these multilingual concepts weren't existing as such.
Yes, and building a rule based system in this space is hardest thing that you can do. How many rules you will
Yeah,
make?
true. Yeah, true. But I would say that is the most prac- first go or practical solution that you can have. So deploy at that position, then have a learning system around that, and eventually transition from rule based to the learning based. That is how it should be. Yeah.
Cold start problem can be tackled by using that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Many times customer do not many times people do not want what this data is capable of. So on that space
Exactly.
also it will throw some light what this data
Yeah.
is capable of.
True.
Very interesting use cases, Prakhar, you have worked on.
Yeah. There are many things, man. It was like, so it was like the first time I was looking into all of these problems, and I was like, how do people even do it? I couldn't even find research papers. So at that time, I was not into research papers at all. So this was the turning point that kind of helped me go through the research and reading a lot of things what people are doing, and since then it became a hobby of mine. I would say this is the best hobby I can have, because being in this field and knowing what is happening by eminent professionals or researchers in this space is the best way you can learn.
Yeah, and there is no end to what you can learn actually, what new things are coming and
True,
what new things are getting added every day.
true.
So we will just wind up in some time. Anything else you want to talk about, Prakhar? No questions from my side. Anything else from your side to my subscribers, or anything in general, your hobbies, whatever?
Yeah. So so I would say hobby, as in I already described, it's more or less around reading papers, and if you talk about sports, I like badminton and stuff. So that keeping that aside, I would say Mm, independent. Independent educators is one of the things that is still striving community. There, although there are open sourced communities in terms of MIT OCW courses and stuff, but uh, learning from people who are content creators should be one of the priorities, because as I already mentioned, everybody comes with their own bag of experience and the way they explain things. So learning all of that stuff is really cool. And if one of the subscribers, if you are one of the subscribers and you are also into all of this stuff for a couple of years, I would encourage you to have your channel as well, because that would immensely help the data science community over there. So I would say, having said that, I really enjoy. So it's a compliment to you. I really enjoy your content, and it's just not because I'm here in the podcast I'm saying that, but yeah, I really have seen through it. So that's also the freshers interview thing that you do is really great, because that is kind of helping freshers to know and understand what's exactly happening and how interview process actually takes place. So yeah, that is one thing. And I do have a channel of my own, and where I explain research papers. It's by the name of TechWiz, the data science guy. So if you are into research papers and want to understand how, let's say, topics like graph-based machine learning or NLP and various segments in that NLP domain work at a research level, do hit me up on your YouTube. I am pretty much active. I do a 1 week video every week. Yeah.
Sure, sure, Prakhar. I'll drop your channel link in the description. Also, I will drop
Yeah.
Prakhar's LinkedIn. Can I do that, Prakhar? I'll drop your LinkedIn in the,
Yeah. Sure.
so
Sure. You
anybody
can do
wants
that.
to connect with you, they can connect. Okay. So again, a very big thank you to you, Prakhar, for your time on Sunday. Okay. So it was
Yeah, thank you for
great
having
talking
me
to you.
actually.
It was
Same
great
here,
talking
same
to
here.
you. I
Likewise.
hope people will enjoy this, and they'll get benefited.
Sure. Sure. I do hope so. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Prakhar, again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.